Rocky Mountains. Oh, good. How many people have fished the Rocky Mountains? Only a handful. Well, good. Well, so for the rest of you, and even for the ones who have, I want to tell you a little bit about my home waters. And I fish the waters of what's called the Greater Yellowstone Ecosystem. It comprises about 22 million acres. That's not Yellowstone Park, that's the whole drainage. There's about 1,000 rivers in that drainage. And there's numerous lakes as well. And what I'm here to tell you about tonight is just to give you an overview of what we fish in back home. So the region is mostly comprised by that corner where it says Wyoming, Montana, and Idaho meet. That is a corner of Yellowstone National Park. There's a number of rivers that drain into the Columbia River, which of course goes into the Pacific. We're on the western slope of the Continental Divide. So the rivers we're going to be talking about, I'll get to in a second. I want to tell you a little bit first about our target species. The main native trout that is not found in Australia and is prized by our fishermen is the cutthroat. There's several varieties of cutthroat throughout the western United States, and they only occur in the western United States. The ones we fish are the Yellowstone cutthroat and the Snake River cutthroat. And they're distinguished by this, and I show you in the previous slide, this very prominent orange slash on the throat and then a lot of spots toward the tail. The Rocky Mountain whitefish is, it's a little bit controversial because some fishermen see it as along the lines of a carp or something. It has a very small mouth. They tend to be sort of slimy, and they make a very funny croaking noise when you grab them to get the hook out. And so a lot of people sort of turn their noses up at them. I actually find them to be quite a fun fish to catch, and you will almost always catch them nymphing. They do come to the surface, but it's rare. Brown trout you're very familiar with. This trout is introduced just like it is here, and it is also considered to be predatory, which it is here as well, but they're also a lot of fun to catch. Brook trout also introduced, also not very welcome in a lot of our waters because they tend to outcompete some of the other fish, and in some waters we actually do harvest those, just take them out of the water when you catch them. The rainbow you're very familiar with. They say here native, but that also is controversial. In one of our rivers in particular, for example, there's a bounty on the head of these rainbow, and they chip them, and they give you prizes for turning the heads in, if there's a chip that's a winning chip in there, because they want the rainbows out in some rivers. Our flies, our go-to flies for freshwater, for live water, and for the still water are very much, I'm sure, some of the same ones that are used here. I haven't done a great deal of freshwater fishing since I've been here, so you'll forgive me if I'm not terribly familiar with what goes on in Australia. But some of the very same things. Some of them probably are you probably wouldn't use. I don't. Do you use like a rubber legs here? Is that you do? Okay, all right, fair enough. But anyway, that's a list of some of the flies that we use. No, stoneflies would be a little bit less familiar. So I know there's drift boats here in Australia, and we have two manufacturers of drift boats right in that area, Hyde and Clacka Craft. And they, of course, intensely compete, and they have their own advocates for each brand. Typically, we'll fish 2 anglers to the boat and an oarsman. And the common refrain among the guy on the sticks is to say, I'm the guy fishing, you're the guy holding the rod. Because it does take a skilled oarsman to put you onto the fish. And we have some pretty big water here. So the 3 key rivers that I want to focus on for tonight are the South Fork, the Snake, and the Henry's Fork. And it turns out those are actually all 3, they end up being the same river, just at different points. The Snake originates up in Yellowstone at a place called Three Oceans Plateau. And it runs down through a place called Jackson Hole, which if you're a skier, you've probably heard of that. And then it goes through a reservoir called Palisades Reservoir. The tailwaters of that reservoir are what form what's called the South Fork of the Snake. And then the other fork is called the Henry's. That starts up in Island Park, Idaho, and it runs down to the west, and it joins into the Snake, and then the whole thing just becomes called the Snake at that point, and it goes on into the Columbia. So I'm going to show a short video here, just to give you a feel for the area, if I can find that.